Hello boys and girls, and welcome back to another episode of Ushanka Show. Stories about life in the Soviet Union. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи! В эфире программа Ushanka Show. In today's video we're going to talk again about music bands in the Soviet Union, so this is part 2, and if by any chance you missed part 1, a link will be below in the comment section. And just a quick reminder, before 1987, all the Soviet music bands were called Vokalno-Instrumentalny Ensemble, Vocal and Instrumental Ensemble. VR. So music, just like any other form of art in the Soviet Union, was heavily controlled by the government via so-called Художественные советы or Худсовет, so like artistic committee, where people appointed by the government will make their decisions about your product, your song, your art, your movies, and they will tell you, no, you can't show it at all, or you gotta change words, you gotta cut out some scenes. So music was also heavily affected by those artistic committees. And I wouldn't be surprised, although I couldn't find any proof, that any Soviet band was required to have some songs that were praising Soviet system, socialism, Komsomol, and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny, or maybe it's not funny, but I still have some songs stuck in my head, their lyrics, since late 1970s. And I was searching the lyrics, and I discovered that VR Samotsvety, so that's music band Gems, they were the most patriotic kind of band in the Soviet Union. They had a lot of songs that were praising Komsomol, so it's a youth communist organization, Soviet Union and such. And I'm not saying those songs were bad, actually some of them were pretty good, very catchy. For example, 1978 song Любовь, Komsomol и Весна, Love, Komsomol and Spring. It was a really good song, and it's probably that's why I remember it. And recently one of the Russian bands called Silesium, I believe, they made a really good cover for that song. I'll provide link below in the comment section. Some of you may remember BAM, Baikalo-Amurskaya Magistral. So it's a Baikal-Amur railroad project in the 70s and early 80s. In March of 1974, General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev announced that BAM will be the most important construction project of the 9th five-year plan. Девятая пятилетка. And a month later, in April of 1974, it was announced that BAM will be Всесоюзная ударная комсомольская стройка. So it's like all-union Komsomol construction project. And sure enough, we needed a song to inspire young people to go and work in the construction of new railroad. And once again, VR Samotsvety came up with the song Слышишь, сердце стучит, BAM. Do you hear your heart is beating? Bum. Your heart makes a noise. Bum, bum, bum. It was pretty funny. VR Samotsvety also had another catchy song from 1972. It was called Мой адрес не дома, не улица, мой адрес Советский Союз. My address is not street name or house number. My address is the Soviet Union. So back in the 72, and that song was popular all the way through the 70s. So this was the type of music that was played on the radio, on TV. People could purchase long plays or cassettes, but there was also something going on underground. And I need to remind you, since I was born in 1971, I was way too young to be part of that movement, because that's we're talking about late 70s, early 80s. That's previous generation, people were born in 1960s. And my parents, bless their hearts, I guess I could call them country bumpkins. They both came from small villages, got a blue-collar job, so they had zero interest in searching for any other kind of music than the one you could hear on the radio. And I don't think there was a lot going on in Kiev in regards of underground music. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the main centers of underground music were, of course, Moscow and especially Leningrad. Now it's called St. Petersburg. That's where most underground bands performed and were located. And this is the image I have in my head now after I did some research on the underground music in the Soviet Union. You know, picture blacktop, which had small tiny cracks. And through those tiny cracks, there'll also be some grass or some kind of plant pushing through and popping out. And this is what pretty much was going on in the Soviet Union, despite heavily government control over the music. Through that red asphalt, there were green shoots of underground music, and they had enough of support, enough of fans to keep on growing and pushing those cracks more and more wide open. Actually, red asphalt, Krasny Asphalt, sounds like could be a good name for some rock band. So what was underground music in the Soviet Union? That's the people or bands that wanted to perform their own songs. They didn't want to be told what to sing. They had their own lyrics. they came up with own music, and they found listeners. What you see in this photo is so-called kvartirnik. Kvartira means an apartment, so this is a small concert in someone's apartment, kvartirnik. So you have maybe 20 people gathered to listen to their favorite band. In this case, it's Boris Grebenshchikov and his band Aquarium. Just windows open, so it's a summer, and about 20 people gathered to listen to him. Somebody provided an apartment, so they can't be too loud, otherwise neighbors would report. But can you imagine experience of these listeners? You have your favorite performer right next to you singing, no auto tune, no security, it's just pretty much face to face experiencing the music this way. Or for the wider audience, they may perform at someone's dacha, summer home, like at this photo. And this picture is really interesting because there's a Viktor Tsoi talking to another guy. So Viktor Tsoi and his band Kino, one of the most popular bands at that time. So there's another way you can attend underground bands at someone's summer home. And this is the same dacha concert, just picture taken from a different angle behind the performance. So people sitting right on the grass, on the chairs, small group. And once again, you could see Viktor Tsoi on the right through the window. And can you imagine how intimate this experience when a small group of people are right next to the singers? That would be really cool to experience. And of course, the Soviet government frowned upon such concerts, kvartirniki or dacha concerts, and quite often militia will show up, police or even KGB, and they make you just disperse or even can arrest you, and you could pay a fine or even go to jail, usually under pretense that you're making too much noise and neighbors can't sleep. And apparently, a Soviet scientist, Alexander Krivomazov, had over 350 such musical and literature kvartirnik events at his small one-room apartment on the outskirts of Moscow, and that happened between 1975 and 1983. 350 concerts. That's crazy. And I just want to emphasize, I think that's the word, that those songs were not necessarily anti-Soviet. They were just not Soviet government approved, and that already made Soviet government not happy. So the majority of music bands that became so popular in the late 80s and through the 90s, they went through these kvartirniki concerts. They went through arrests or being harassed by the Soviet government. Leningrad, currently St. Petersburg, was home for Boris Grebenshchikov and Aquarium, Yuri Shevchuk and his band DDT, Pyotr Mamonov and Zvuki Mu, Konstantin Kinchev and his band Alisa. And Moscow was home for, of course, Viktor Tsoi and his band Kino. I think they were the most popular rock band in the late 80s. That was my favorite band. Also bands like Center, Brava, Zoopark, and Nautilus Pompilius. And of course, if we speak about underground Soviet rock music and how the West discovered rock music in the 80s, we need to talk about Joanna Stingray. Joanna came to Soviet Union, to Leningrad in 1984 as a tourist. Somehow she met Boris Grebenshchikov from Aquarium, and Boris was fluent in English. And she got so enchanted by this underground rock culture that she smuggled records out of Leningrad, brought them to California, and she published the album in 1986 called The Red Wave. So the studio Big Time Records published Red Wave, 4 underground bands from the Soviet Union, and it was a double album. It sold 10,000 copies, and that's for the very first time the West in the United States discovered Russian, they say it's Russian, but I'll call it Soviet rock music. I just ordered my copy of this album because I have a Technics LP player, believe it or not. I picked it up for free many years ago when I was in the moving business. I get a really nice Technics receiver and Technics LP player, so I'm excited to get my copy and play it. And when Mikhail Gorbachev, at that time, of course, he was leader of Soviet Union, learned about the Red Wave album and about situation that Soviet rock bands has to stay underground, he ordered to make their life easier, and that's when those bands went mainstream. And Joanna Stingray returned to the Soviet Union many times, and she became very popular here. And I personally remember there was some kind of advertising. I just looked it up. It was advertising for her own album, and the 3 lucky winners would spend the day with Joanna Stingray in Moscow, and it was called Один день со Stingray, one day with Stingray. You go eat pizza with her at Pizza Hut, now they have Pizza Hut in Moscow, play bowling. So the whole day with Joanna Stingray. I remember that commercial.
Один день со Stingray.
And many people in Russia remember John Stingray by her 1993 commercial "Не надо мусорить, да? Do not litter, yes?"
Земля – это наш дом. Не надо мусорить, да?
Да! They said it was filmed in Russia, Moscow, Leningrad in 1993, and it's a social commercial that shows people throwing trash away, and Russian popular rock stars, in this case this is Andrei Makarevich from Mashina Vremeni from Time Machine Band. Now he's doing good, wearing a leather jacket and driving BMW. He stops to pick up trash. So, it just kind of tells you, hey, stop trashing. Here we have another performer, Garek Sukachev, picks up a cigarette butt and threw it in the trash as well. So that was really unusual, and it's so 90s. Another guy, and here, just a drunkard tossing bottle on the ground, and I believe this is Boris Gribenshikov from Aquarium Band. Once again picks up trash and put it in the garbage, and we have a Lada Zhiguli. That's a first model sitting in the background. And there's a Kinchev from Alisa Rock Band, all dressed like a rock star, I guess, and he shows, hey, you spit in the trash. And now Joanna Stingray back in 1993. She tells you, do not trash. And the way she said it was a strong American accent. Не надо мусорить, да? That's what people remember.
Земля – это наш дом. Не надо мусорить, да?
Да! By the way, if you're interested in John Stingray's adventures in Russia, you can watch her interview with Ivan Toth. It was filmed in July of 2023. It's over 40 minutes interview, and I'll provide the link below in the comment section. And while John Stingray definitely helped to promote underground Soviet rock music, it was something else that totally changed Soviet music industry. It was May 1988 law on cooperatives, Закон о кооперативах, which allowed for independent worker-owned cooperatives to operate in the Soviet Union. So Mikhail Gorbachev allowed not only state-owned enterprises but also worker-owned cooperatives to operate, and now any music band could be a musician-owned cooperative, and they didn't have to have permission from Ministry of Culture, they didn't have to have their songs censored, and that was a huge explosion after 1988 in all kinds of music, not just rock music but pop and everything else. And that's when the Soviet musicians realized how profitable the show business could be if you have a full stadium that came and paid money to listen to you. You collect way more than 17 rubles per performance. And that's how all those guys suddenly became rock stars and became rich. And for the young people like me, that was fantastic time, because now we could buy any LPs, we could go to concerts. The only concert I went was Black Coffee, Черный Кофе, heavy metal band in Kiev, and man, that was pretty good. I lost my voice. That was fantastic experience. Okay, my friends, so all I have for you today. I'm planning to make a separate video about Viktor Tsoi and his band Kino, about Alla Pugacheva, and any other performers you want me to talk about it, please post in the comment section. Otherwise, thank you for watching Ushanka Show. Please don't forget to like this video. You can support my work through Patreon or Super Likes, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye.